Hey, it's me, Dave. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Knack. Knack is a no-code email and landing page creation platform focused on a problem every marketing team runs into. Have you ever had a really good marketing idea, but then it takes forever to actually ship it out the door? It's usually not because your idea is bad, but because the process in the middle is slow. Briefs, more briefs, approvals, reviews, tiny fixes that somehow turn into weeks. And by the time the campaign is finally ready to go out, it barely even looks like what you originally wanted to ship. Yep, that right there, that is the gap that Knack exists to close. Knack is a no-code email platform built for modern marketing teams. They have AI built into the platform that lets you prompt ideas and instantly generate on-brand email assets so you can create, review, QA, and launch your email all in the same place. No jumping between tools or messy handoffs halfway through. After the email goes live, Knack also gives you performance insights and recommendations so you can see what worked and how you can make the next send better. So if execution is the thing slowing your marketing down, or you just want one system that takes you from idea to shipped to learning to improving, you should check out Knack. Go to knack.com/exit5. That's KNAK.com/exit5. You're listening to The Dave Gerhardt Show. Hey, on this episode of my podcast, I had on Eoin Clancy. He's VP of Growth at Airops. They're a really cool company in the AI, search, content, visibility space. I know this is the hottest topic in marketing right now, anything about AI, content, SEO. But we had a great conversation. We talk about the rise of the role of content engineer and why you might need one. We talk about the 3 ways to know if something is AI slop. So we actually put a definition on this and talked about this is AI slop, this is not, and how to create 10x content while using AI tools. So it's not just that you can't use AI tools to make content because it's going to be AI slop. You can, you just need to know the rules of the game and the right way to do it. Plus, we talked about Airops' best growth channel right now, which I was happy to hear it's webinars. That's right. In Q1 of 2026, the best channel right now for this company is webinars. I love webinars. We dive into their webinar funnel, how they come up with topics, how they source guests, how the follow-up works, and why it's actually leading to revenue, despite the fact that they don't gate any of these webinars at all. This is a great conversation, really tactical and specific for those of you who want to hear from a marketing person actually doing the marketing right now. You're going to get a lot out of my conversation with Eoin Clancy. He's VP of Growth at Airops. Eoin, good to have you on the pod.
Yeah, glad to be here, Dave.
We were joking because we've done a bunch of stuff together, and Dan always messages me. He's like, we should have Eoin on the pod. And like for 6 months. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we have it. It's scheduled. It's happening. And it's happening right now. And I took a screenshot to throw it into Slack to prove it. So we're going to get into a bunch of Airops is a cool company in a cool space. And we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that you're doing in marketing that's working, what's not working, opinions on marketing. People have been really liking the let's talk about what marketers are actually doing. Let's get away from the oh, so what'd you do before this and before that?
Mm-hmm.
They want to talk about right now. I want this to be a podcast that people listen to and take stuff away from. But before we do that, briefly tell me about Airops. What does the company do? Why is it interesting? And what's it been like doing marketing in this AI and SEO/content space, which is really hot right now?
It's so fun. I come from having marketed or doing growth in a different space towards software engineers for the last 6 years. And that was tough. That drains you. It's an audience that's hard to get in front of. So Airops is a content engineering platform. We're in a super hot space at the moment. Everyone is trying to generate content to get their brand seen in AI search and also seen in SEO. So we help leading companies like Carta, Chime, and a lot more, basically increase their brand visibility. So we can get into later, Dave, what's the difference between AI slop and what you guys do? I know that's definitely top of mind for everyone, but we're there to help team basically increase their brand visibility in organic search.
Okay, so you mentioned Airops is helping to solve the problem of getting found in AI search, which is something everyone's asking about right now. You also mentioned something about content engineering. Explain that term to me.
Yeah, that is a term that we'd like to say that we've championed ourselves. And HubSpot had their version of like the growth marketer. You've Clay who do like the GTM engineer. For us, it was very hard to find who is like the person that like owns or runs Airops internally. So we actually like played around with the word choice or like the title for a long time. But a content engineer today, given we have 12 months of lots of learnings and probably I think in the last 6 months we've seen like 80 people hired into content engineering roles at a range of our customers and prospects. But a content engineer is someone who really starts to manage your context internally and also builds and maintains your workflows. So when we talk as well about like avoiding AI slop, it all comes down to what you're feeding a model with or like what you're educating yourself on in terms of the context that feeds into your content. So content engineer helps gather and make that data available. And they're also building the workflows that help you produce the content.
And would the content engineer be responsible for the website content, or is it like the blog, like content marketing efforts? Because this has been coming up. It's like now that I need to have my website content formatted in a different way and there needs to be specific files and this and that, then I need to make sure my content is readable for LLMs and humans. Like does product marketing owns the website or demand gen? Where does it fit with content engineer?
I think it very much depends on like the size of an organization. So the larger you go, your product marketer is probably going to maintain your product, solutions, use case pages because they're lower amounts of copy, they're higher density in terms of just like speaking to the user. And we're starting to see more content engineers progress from the more strategic, performance focused content up towards that. So I think like Card is a good example. So Lucy Hoyle, she's like our champion over there. She started off on managing their blog content. Now she's moved in.
Is her title like content engineer? She's a content engineer at...
Correct. Yeah. She moved from like a content strategist into, I think now she's like a senior content engineer. So it's great to see people get promoted in the role as well. But yeah, she's moved from a lot of the performance related content. So as you said, Dave, like on the blog or larger programmatic hubs, and she's now focused on a lot of the strategic content. So she is now starting to craft workflows that go into thought leadership content, and I think starting to touch some of the product pages. And again, as we think about the higher quality content, whether it is a landing page, which has far fewer words than a longer blog post, you're still generally trying to solve the same problem. You're trying to find what is it that is unique to your business? Like, how does your product like situate itself in the market? And then how do you describe that best to a human or an agent that is like visiting this asset that lives on your website?
I like that distinction because I still feel like I think AI SEO stuff is cool. There's a lot of changes. The more, and I'm certainly not an expert, as you know, I'm just a thought leader. I just interview people for a living. But almost everybody that I've talked to, like if I were to like make, it sounds a lot like what it was, 10 years ago, like, hey, let's make sure this content is like searchable and indexable and is useful for Google. It's kind of the same thing now, but it's for LLMs and they have a different way of doing that. That might be my layman's terms of explaining that. But is that any beef with that?
None whatsoever. There's one book I come back to every 12 months by Eli Schwartz. It's called Product Led SEO. And I think Eli wrote that in about 2016. So you're talking way pre ChatGPT. You're talking before even like people also answer elements in Google search. But a lot of the core principles he talks about as to how to invest in a strong like SEO motion.
Who's Eli Schwartz, by the way?
Eli Schwartz led SEO at big companies like Toast and like many other big B2C companies where their whole growth motion was SEO. So his kind of like MO is like answer users' questions with the content that you produce. So all of the companies he's worked with will say greater than 30% of their acquisitions will come from organic. But his core principle in the book, again, written a decade ago, I guess at this point, was the search engines, their whole motivation is to surface the best content for any given query. And whether that search like engine is like Bing or Google or ChatGPT or Perplexity, they're trying to get to ground truth. They're trying to like answer the question they get in with the best piece of content, or now it's like a larger answer. So like no matter what sort of content you're trying to create, like you always need to draw it back to like what a user's focused on. And then what are the questions that they have that might be unanswered? That's largely like where your opportunity is. So I think given the space is like changing the whole time, it still comes back to you, the human, who needs to find an answer and you need to provide that answer.
I love when you can find something like that in a sea of like, oh my God, I saw a tweet from Brian Halligan this morning, who's the former CEO and founder of HubSpot. And he's like, and he's, at Sequoia, top investor in the space, looking at the hottest AI companies. He's like, it was something like, does anyone else feel like overwhelmed? Like they can't keep up? And I'm like, oh, that made me feel better because I have had this insane feeling of like, I am just a muggle who uses ChatGPT, and it's like my feed is like just these insane workflows and all these things. And I'm like, God, I feel so far behind. I just love when you hear something like that, a book that came out, 10 years ago, where the principles remain. Nice.
Yeah, I think one of the things I do when I try and like select a book is it's the Lindy effect, it's called, but a book becomes more valuable the longer it's been around. So you should always return to like the classics because they're a classic for a given reason. Like they're not going to keep coming up in conversations or being mentioned unless they're good. So basically, the longer something is around, the more authoritative and likely long lasting that it is.
Okay, so you're in this space at Airops. You're going after this persona of content engineer, which there are a lot of, we do marketers, we do like to make up names and terms. And I love when people roll their eyes on this because like, no, buddy, that's like actually the job. It's like, you should make these things up. That's part of the marketing job. Like if you're getting paid to be a marketer at a company, like, yeah, we're going to try to call it content engineer. But it turns out like this is working. It sticks. And it's one of the things that makes sense to me. Like this role makes sense. A couple marketing teams ago, like we would want to be hiring like a growth person in marketing, or we hired someone who was like a former PM and we called her like marketing engineer. There has always been, or, Clay has the GTM engineer. What you're talking about is applying this specifically to content. And I've long believed that out of all the things in marketing, content is arguably the most important thing in marketing. So why not apply an engineer to that and learn a lot about AI and what it's going to take to rank for SEO? I think it's an interesting play. But we don't want to just talk all about content engineers. We're going to talk about a bunch of the specific things you all have done at Airops that seem to be working. Can you just set the stage, by the way, before we talk about, hey, here's all these great marketing plays that you run. Can you give me some receipts, credibility? You don't have to, you're a private company, so probably you're not going to tell me Airops revenue on air, but give me some sense. Let's tell people that like, hey, this is working, the company's growing, and then we'll talk about the marketing stuff that you've done.
Yeah, 100%. So when I joined the company about 18 months ago, I came in as a former customer. I was actually a customer for 12 months. So I joined what was then like a 15-person company, solo marketer. We were very much like PLG focused, trying to go like bottoms up, like self-serve, because like while it was a content automation platform, it was generalized automation as well. You could use Airops and still can.
That was the company you were at. For people who might not know, that was the company you were at before this, Wilet.
But I joined Airops when we were more like a PLG, like we were self-serve.
Okay, while it was a PLG, got it.
Yes, correct. And then, I was a solo marketer, which means you do everything for about like 5 or 6 months. And then as we started to like think about, my job was like head of growth, is to figure out the channels and the tactics that can drive basically pipeline or acquisition for us. So basically, we started to see a lot more value with dealing with bigger companies. It gave us better product direction. It gave us just better signal because these people are like knee deep in the problems that we wanted to go and solve. So taking the first 6 months of like finding our feet, setting up some channels, the last 12 months, that was 2025. We've basically like 10x our revenue and then like 10x our customer count as well. And in that time, we've gone from SMB focused to really like enterprise. So again, it's been
a tale as old as time. It's literally every company ever. Dan and I were just talking about this because we're feeling it in our business. It's like it always happens this way.
It's incredible.
Follow the money.
Yeah, like along the way though, it is the same set of problems that marketers are facing. And people are at different stages of their journey of like understanding and adoption. So like you were like be negative to yourself, Dave, of like you just use ChatGPT, but I think you're still ahead of probably like 50% of
Oh,
marketers
whoa, whoa,
who
whoa,
haven't
whoa, whoa,
even
whoa.
like
Hold on.
go for it.
I use Claude Cowork,
Oh,
motherfucker.
okay.
So
You're ahead of the curve.
woo,
You're ahead of the curve.
I am I'm a vibe engineer myself. So yeah, I said ChatGPT because I didn't want to make anybody feel inadequate, but I'm using
Yeah.
Gemini, I'm using ChatGPT, I'm using Claude Cowork. Like, take that,
Nice. So
influencers.
you're
Yeah.
you're top 10% then.
Yeah.
And I think generally like as people move into that early adopter phase, or now I guess it's like the median person or median like content marketer is starting to like realize that this is something they need to move with. That's where we've kind of like found our sweet spot within organizations where they're getting hit by like SEO not being as important, but also just like the essence of brand being incredibly important as you get into a nano banana or like comms or PR, just how you can leverage the tools to move fast or move faster, but keep your quality really high. That's like the main challenge that a marketer is facing today. Everyone's asking them to move faster. Hey, you've all these tools. Why can't we launch faster? Why can't we do more content? But they need to keep the balance of like quality very, very high. I think that's where we're really trying to address their situation.
Yeah. One of the topics was going to be fighting AI slop. This is a natural transition to there. So maybe
Yeah.
we'll talk about webinars, talk about some other stuff you've done, but maybe let's talk about this. Is this kind of what you're getting at, which is like we want to use the AI tools to create our content. However, that V1, the uniqueness, the utility, the cool factor of it has kind of gone away, and it's like you can't just use it to create, silly little memes or just kind of like, hey, wow. Like I remember 3 years ago, I was like, wow, like ChatGPT wrote me this, email that would have taken me, 20 minutes before. But how do you articulate we don't do AI slop, but we use AI. Why do you think that, why do you think those two things get mixed together? Why do people say like, oh, you're using AI to create your content? That's evil.
Yeah. I think we've been on like a journey. I think like as a marketing group where when this tool came out, like you said, it just like gave you instant access to like content generation. So be it an email or a memo or a blog post, you could like give it literally like a sentence of like write me a blog on X, and it could come out with as many words as you want, which is like the best thing and also the worst thing. So Google was like kind of caught flat-footed with some of like ChatGPT's releases. So you could put out that undifferentiated content and you'd actually get quite good results. So I think between ChatGPT coming out maybe the next 6 months, people were like, how do I throw more gas on this fire? Because you could create hundreds of pages and actually get results. But again, the thing I love about Eli Schwartz's book is like those pages were not serving user intent. Like they were just slop. And I think there's some people today where they're still on that practice and it's not driving results. And then they're very vocal where they're like, hey, I'm using AI. I'm like seemingly like producing output, but it's not driving results. Like it doesn't work. And I think sometimes they get to dominate the conversation, but it all comes back to like, is what you're producing actually useful? Does anyone want to go read it? And is it really, I think what we believe in, is it pushing the conversation forward?
The reason I like this topic is because it's like, that's the fun part about marketing to me. I'm not an engineer. So the fun part is not like, how do I produce 100 pages, 100 landing pages at the snap of my fingers? Where my bias is more like, how do we tell a story that stands out? How do we get attention, right? How do we create something worth reading? And then ultimately, if someone reads something and it's good and helpful, I don't get to the end of that article and I'm like, oh, this was totally written by AI. I'm like, oh, cool. I got the answer that I was looking for. Like, like
totally.
I need to go to the post office after this. Like, this is a silly consumer example. Like, is the post office open at 4:00? Like, I got the answer. Am I like, damn it, AI gave me the answer? Slop. It's like, it doesn't matter.
I think one of the things I've been like stewing on is,
please,
what are the 3 biggest indicators of something being AI slop?
Oh, okay.
If you know
what do you got? Give me what
AI slop is, you can avoid it.
Okay,
I think
tell
number
me.
1.
Here's a clip. This producer Aaron, let's make this a clip. Here are 3 ways to know if the content is AI slop.
Number 1, I think not unique. It's not pushing the conversation forward. like in our term, it's not like information gain. Like it's not using your internal experts. It's not going into look at Reddit questions or like questions are coming up on like your gong calls. Like you're not leveraging that really unique information that you have. You're instead just like scraping what's on the top 2 pages of Google, repurposing it and churning it back out again. So I think where you're not unique, that's AI slop. Number two, and this matters more on like a per brand level, but like the content doesn't sound like you. I think it's also near the slop side as well. And the certain brands that always stand out to me that are like edgy, so like Intercom or Clay. Clay's a great example. It's always like a fun brand. Like their social persona should actually come through when you're like reading a customer story or a piece of content from them. You want like they as like a marketing team want it to sound like them, but you also enjoy reading Clay's content because like it has like a certain vibe. So if it doesn't match that, if it doesn't sound like you, I think as well, it's in the lower quality bucket. And then there's the smaller telltales. And this is like what will come up in a LinkedIn post or like a YouTube video, or a college professor is probably like shouting at their students every day. But like the M dashes, just like there's other words like utilize instead of use, just these phrases that we actually don't use in everyday vocabulary. I think that as well is just like there are like telltale signs there, but it's not that that is a significant indicator of low quality. Some people do use those words, but it's not in like your daily vocabulary. And one of the most important things to actually create performant content is like the readability of it. Like the LLM still has to like digest all of this. A human has to engage with it. Like it needs to be like easy to read. So right for a fifth grader or like right for your elementary school like audience, and it actually performs better.
So I was just before this, I had a doctor's appointment and I was asking something. I was just sharing all my, private information with Gemini because, like, who cares? Whatever, right? Hey, like, I'm dying. How do you fix it? And it exactly the headline that one of the tells is like the way they do like the subheads and kind of like recap things. And so it's like the conflict, why one isn't another. And then they explain one section, the hack to stop the frustration. Then the third one was like the last paragraph. It's like recapping it all, the reality check. Like it's almost like it's too like robotic, and it is one of those weird things. I also think there's something with humans. Those are great, by the way. Love the list of three. I want to get back to the tone of voice thing in a second. But I think there's something, I'm noticing this in my kids now who are young. They know when I show them a video, they're like, oh, that's AI. I'm like, how do you know? It just feels, it just has a way. And I know people love the like AI voice recorders. We have one. We have a Dave bot, which is trained on my voice. It doesn't trick me 100%. Maybe we're going to, pass this. Someone's listening in their car right now who's like super deep in AI, and there's like, just wait, Dave, 6 months, the fraud is the spam and the fraud is going to be through the roof. But there's definitely something there on the feel. And it's like, I don't know, people love the term taste, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like, how do you know when something is handmade, right? Like the difference between like a local restaurant, you're in Chicago, amazing food, the difference between a pizza in Chicago, right, from a proper place versus going to, say, California Pizza Kitchen, more of like a big chain, is going to be noticeable. You mentioned tone of voice. I want to talk about that because this is a thing. I've been feeling this, but how do you define that? A lot of companies, it just kind of happens. There's a writer who's there early and that kind of has their voice. Are you seeing customers or even you all like trying to have a tone of voice so that then you can use AI within that framework and it works versus if you let AI dictate your tone of voice? Any advice there?
Yeah. This is like one of the toughest parts, and like almost taking a step back to answer the question, people often ask like, is AI going to replace a marketer? And like the answer is like undoubtedly in my head, no, because that is like a key question that is like so hard to evaluate. And like we've tried to create like frameworks that can help companies. They just need to determine if the end output is similar to their tone of voice input. And it's like a hard problem to solve. Like it's not as if you can do an engineering sprint and like go and solve it. But taking like 2 or 3 examples of like customers, I think the big thing that comes out when we like nail a workflow with them is that from their content marketer or their like head of product marketing, they just come to us with, it's the recurring sentence of, this just sounds like us. And that's like a super hard thing to go and measure. But it really comes from like the hybrid situation. Like if you just try and use like AI out of the box, and you mentioned Claude Code, Dave. I spent my entire weekend in it. So I was trying to like hack it in all the ways to see like how far I could push it. Like the hybrid situation is really where you end up with like higher quality, but there are some important inputs. The inputs are going to be your product context, and then you have like brand style guides, and then you do have like a tone of voice that really like you can probably put into a one pager. And I think that does need to be a key asset that you spend a lot of time on. But the interesting thing, what a lot of our customers do, or when prospects come to us, they've actually done this themselves. They use AI to help generate that for them. So like they're going to have not been using AI for the last 3, 4, however many years they're in business, but they've created a lot of content that they're proud of. It performs really well. It's reflective of maybe their like leadership's team voice, or maybe their like brand team has like a different quirk to them. So with these tools that are available, you can almost like capture the essence by synthesizing the content you have out there into these key documents. And then that just gives you a much better foundation to go and build on. But it's almost like the human element to answer your question of it's really hard to figure out what is tone of voice, but there are ways that you can create these assets, and that gives you just a better starting point. But you do need to continue to refine your systems over time, because like a product set, your tone of voice is going to change depending on your state of the company, the state of the market, and wider things. So it's an evolving asset. So you want to make sure that humans are very much like kept in that loop.
I also like, you've talked about this, but basically how important subject matter expertise is in your content. And it's challenging because there are going to be people that listen to this, and not everyone at every point in your career, or even right now, is going to be at a company where you're like, man, we have so much unique IP. Like there are a lot of marketers, like we got to just be real. We're just like doing marketing at a company, and the company's kind of like, meh, you know? But I think this is important to still state, because this shows what it takes to be great. And especially if you're looking for a new company, looking for a new job, looking at a new company, can I go do marketing where I feel like, this is why I wrote the book Founder Brand as an example. My point was like, that's the best ingredient for me as a marketer, is like, if I find out that the founder of this company has a super interesting backstory and like started this company because they had some deep pain or problem before, which is usually the case. Most founders aren't like, you know what I want to do? I want to get super rich, and so I'm going to start a company. It's like, oh no, from tech companies down to like the snacks in my pantry. You open the pantry and it's like, I was tired of feeding my kids, sugary drinks. And so I created blank. And it's like, everyone has a story. And so the more, it seems like, especially in this era, the more subject matter expertise and IP around the problem that you're solving for your customer, that's also going to be a key ingredient in how successful you can be with content.
Indeed. What I'll say is, with all of the tools we have access to, even if maybe your like founding team isn't the most like extroverted, or it's like hard to pull those like key stories out, there's like many other places you can go to. Knowing what I know now, how I would have approached content differently at my last company is like interview like engineers every day of the week, because they're like the ones often solving the problems at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. and they like realize the day in the life of like our customer. And they're like such nuance there. And again, we always used to do the end of quarter like content analysis at the last company. Everything that like stood out with like traffic numbers or on time page engagement were the most technical pieces we created. And they were like a struggle to do. It was like super hard to like sit down with an engineer for like an hour, ask them like informed questions, and then afterwards use your best kind of like understanding of the problem to write it up. Now that can turn into like, hey, Dave, like use your phone when you're out on a walk, record this voice note, send it to me. I'll like use AI to enrich it, come back to you with the draft. We can like improve the whole process. That whole end like work stream is much easier now, but you can often find people inside of the building who can give you that key context. And even if still that's not available, ask your customers, or better still, listen into the conversations they had with your sales team. And again, that is the richest golden context you could be using for developing your content, or just like honing in if you're trying to find product market fit, honing in on how you should position yourselves to these people.
Hey, it's Dave. Today's episode is also brought to you by Optimizely. Okay, everyone is using AI right now, point blank. That part's done. We're all using all the tools for copy, ideas, baseline stuff. But there's still a gap. Most marketing teams are using the AI tools to think and not actually do. That's where things are headed next. And our sponsor, Optimizely, built this platform called Opal that lets you use autonomous AI agents to go and do the stuff you shouldn't be doing manually versus just being another chatbot. Here are some examples. Opal can create and optimize on-brand web pages, emails, SEO content, and campaigns by audience segment. It catches brand, legal, and accessibility issues before anything else goes live on your website. It pulls data from your other systems like Google Analytics, your CRM, and sales tools to auto-build reports, summaries, and recommendations, and more. And guess what? It's completely no code. So marketers like you and me can build and leverage agents for any use case we dream up without having to rely on developers. That is freedom. So get this. Optimizely has this incredible offer for Exit 5 listeners. They're offering a free, personalized 45-minute AI workshop to help you identify the best AI use cases for your marketing team and map out where agents can save you time with a practical plan that you can actually go and use right away. They're giving everyone who attends live a free pair of Meta Ray-Bans, which are awesome if you haven't used them yet. So you should go grab a seat right now at optimizely.com/exit5. It's optimizely.com/exit5. Check out the workshop, get smarter about AI. The future is here. I also think that it being easy should not be the benchmark for hey, I think that good content actually does take time. It's almost, that is what makes it good. It's because you had to interview subject matter experts and really dig to find a point of view. Or I've used this example a bunch, but Emily Kramer from MKT1, do you know her? You seen her Substack?
Yeah.
So she's I talked to her a couple weeks ago and she's yeah, I write once a month. And it's because I'm doing a ton of research and a ton of data. I'm perfect. I don't know if that works. For her, that works. That's amazing. But I like it because it's she's going to go super deep and win on depth and data and sources versus I'm going to just publish a million times in a month and hope something good happens. And so I think we're always under pressure by management and others to find the easy button for marketing. And it's just create more content when it's actually I don't know. I love that concept of more so people were talking about this 5 years ago by pillar content, 10x content, right? Instead of blog posts every day, what if once a month we publish some piece of original research that was actually worth sharing?
Yeah. The example I'll give you from in-house here was one that Josh, who's our webinar lead and our content lead, he created back in probably this time last year, February 2025, around the 10x content engineer. And kind of we were going through there, he interviewed a ton of subject matter experts internally, talked to a ton of our customers. So that gave him a lot of key context. But Josh did toil over this piece for a week. It wasn't as if we tried to make it keyword optimized and absolutely pristinely structured so that was going to work incredibly well in an agent. But it was well written. It was written to a problem that existed and does exist in the market. And it is by far and away the outstanding piece of content from whatever angle we want to measure it. And again, content engineering was not a high search, it didn't have high keyword value. It wasn't something that anything existed on YouTube about, but it very much kickstarted our own initiative of making this a craft to go and invest in.
Nice.
So a lot of the best content, as you said, comes from someone putting in the work and wrecking their brain. But I think now you can start to use at least tools to help you get there.
I think in the past, a lot of people would say, how do I find a great writer? And I don't want to take anything away from the craft of writing and being a great writer, but from a marketing standpoint and a business growth standpoint, maybe what's cool about the role of content engineer is I actually think we have more tools than ever. If you're not an amazing copy or amazing pro, that doesn't mean you can't create amazing content. Look at social media, right? Imagine saying the only people that could go viral on TikTok are professional videographers. And it's no, you could be, what if your angle on being a great content marketer is you're really great at coming up with hooks and you're great at doing the research. And then you can use the tools to help you create the content. I think it doesn't have to be, I've always struggled with all right, well, who's going to write this 2,000 word article? Well, we have more of the tools at our disposal to be able to do that. All right, we're going to shift over to webinars. So TLDR on this one is Airops loves webinars. Webinars are crushing for you all. You did 14 webinars in Q4 in 2025, and you've applied your kind of analytical growth mindset to your webinar funnel. I thought webinars were dead. I know they're not because I love them. But wait a second, is 2026, I got a VP of growth at like a hot, AI company telling me that his growth hack is webinars. Please enlighten me. What is your webinar playbook, sir?
Oh man, I won't reveal all of it, but like webinars are back. That was like the story for 2026, at least for us. And I think like to explain why they're so good, it's kind of worth taking a step back to why we started them. So initially when I came in, again, it was like very different company, very different space. But what I wanted to do was we had these amazing builders. We had like now today we'll call them content engineers. We had amazing builders on the platform just doing wild and crazy stuff and like having amazing results with it. And I was like, the best way for us to get more users or get our names out there is like help tell the story of these amazing people. And a lot of them were not content focused. We had like Sean Linehan, who runs like an executive coaching firm. We had Matteo, who now is a content engineer, but back then he was doing kind of like product marketing work. And it just started with like, let's unlock these stories. And that just gives us ideas and it gives the market ideas. And then,
okay, so let's just like geek out on the tactics a little bit here. So
yeah,
the number one thing was like really finding good stories to tell on a webinar.
yes,
Okay.
correct. And like we also have the benefit of being in a super influx market. So search changes a ton. So what we really care about is connecting the leading practitioners to the leading like experts. So we will start off when we plan out a quarter with like a skeleton. And we're like, we need to speak to the content engineer. We want to try and speak to the CMO, and we'll have like 2 or 3 tracks. And we will generally say these are like 2 or 3 hot subjects. So like right now it might be query fan out or Claude Code. And we're going to say like, we need to hit on these like 2 or 3 things across 2 or 3 different tracks. And then it was not easy 12 months ago, but now we have the luxury of we will try and match who is the best person in the market for this problem and how do we like find our way to meet them. So there's kind of like trying to identify what's hot, what people want to learn about, and who can help us kind of like who's the industry expert that can like tell that story. But we also need to be very flexible with that plan. So
Yep.
one of the highest performing webinars we ran, and actually it was in Q4, was with Mark Williams Cook, huge SEO agency guy out of the UK. I forget what we had Mark committed to originally, but 2 weeks out, he was like, guys, like we need to like throw our original agenda out the window. And after going super deep in Google AI mode, which was relatively new, and he was like, I have a ton of research, like let's cover that. And we're like, fantastic, great. Because we had been receiving on sales calls, we had been getting questions in from previous webinars of like Google AI mode being a key thing people wanted to dig into. So there's definitely, from a tactical standpoint, many little growth things that we do, but we try and create a skeleton, match ourselves and our audience with the best people who know their topics, and then go deep.
Timeless principle number 47, right? Begin with the end in mind, which is like, I think a lot of times we see, I'll see people in our community or marketers, it almost seems like that's just an existing channel that marketing does. And so it's like, we got to do webinars. We're going to do 3 webinars a month because we need each one of them to produce 5 MQLs. And we need to find a way to turn it into sales ROI. And so we need to make it like very product focused. And so it's like, join us for the Salesforce, blah, blah, blah webinar. And it's like, well, who's going to go to that? Where what you did is like, this is what I love about marketing, right? It's like, here's a trend in the, like, it is so obvious to me in our marketing sphere that like everyone is talking about Claude Code in the last 30 days. That's the work one. If I had to do a personal life one, it would be like saunas. Everyone's talking about the benefits of sauna right now, right? So it's like, I bet if I did a webinar on saunas, and if I did a webinar on the health benefits for men and women in their late 30s of sauna, like that would crush. Just because you're out there, part of being good at content is just like having a feel for the market. And so it's like, instead of instantly being like, well, how are we going to make this an Airops product webinar where we show them product? It's like, no. These are people who care about these types of things. The thing they care about right now that actually has nothing to do with Airops is Claude Code. Let's do a killer webinar on Claude Code. During that webinar, we get them to know, like, and trust us, and then we can, run the plays from there, right?
100%. And someone asked me the last day, they were like, so, like, how much do you care about MQLs? How much do you care about, like, getting the sales pitch in there? And I'm like, honestly, that's the last thing that is on our minds when we're creating this content. Like,
Let's get to that. I do want to answer that because sometimes people give me a hard time when I say stuff like this because it's like, yeah, rah, 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 great topic. But ultimately, like the end of the day, the way someone measures, oftentimes like the person who's responsible for managing the webinar program, right? Her job is to book there needs to be some measurable outcome. And I know you care about this. So let's get to that. But I want to like talk to the webinar stack. So first, like, what do you run what tool? People love tools. What tools do you use to use a webinar platform? Any tech stack stuff you can share?
Yeah, we're going to change it in the next while, but right now we use Luma for managing the event and communications with people who register. Then we use like HubSpot for all of our email.
What are you going to change to?
We're currently looking at a few different tools. If anyone who's selling is interested in giving us a discount, I'd be more than happy. But we'd love to bring everything into like one platform. There's just nuances as we get to like a bigger scale of trying to segment our audience that like Luma doesn't do a great job on. So that's some tool we need to find by the end of like this quarter.
Okay. You mentioned HubSpot for what?
For emails.
Okay. So the webinar platform has to connect to HubSpot so you can send emails.
Correct. That I have a story on as well in a minute. But Zoom, we just have like scaled from internal meetings to like Zoom webinars, and then we do pretty sophisticated personalized follow-ups with Clay, Trigify, and Smart Lead in the backgrounds, and then like Zapier. So we've many small little signals we monitor. They come into like Clay or Airops to kind of get condensed, personalized, and then we send out emails via a mixture of HubSpot and Smart Lead. So there's a core set of tools, but also like many other small ones in there.
Can you share anything about the follow-up strategy? Because I think this is where, okay, well, we're going to just have sales follow up with everyone, attended, didn't attend. Like there's different strategies for like who attended, who didn't attend.
Yeah.
What's the offer? You know, if I get an email after the webinar that I went to, but it's like, hey, Airops is the shit. Book a meeting with us tomorrow. I'm not going to do that. I'm curious if, what are some of the signals? What might be a good outreach? That Claude Code webinar is an example. How do you book an Airops demo from that?
The booking the demo is not the thing that we care about, which is like...
Okay, so what is the metric that you care about then, whatever that is?
We care about like engagement with the content that we put in front of someone. So again, answering your previous question, for doing follow-up, the context that we care about is this your first event to come to? That requires something very different to a person who's a customer that's coming to their 15th event. So it's like, where along your journey in terms of attending our webinars are you? We also look back at what context do we know about this person from questions they've asked or pages they've been on. And then we do a lot of pre-work before a webinar to get personalized questions from our audience. So those three sets of how many webinars have they attended? What do we know about them from like what is available? Like, have they done a sign up but nothing else? Have they viewed different pages? And then the most recent context gathered from them. All of that comes in together within like an Airops workflow. And from there, we basically have 3 or 4 assets that we can share with someone after the fact. One might just be a recap. If people didn't show up, well, we can't really like push them too much further down the funnel or their education journey without just giving them like a recap of like what event they missed out on. If someone is like very far down and they're attending their 10th webinar, that's going to be more of like, can we enable them like deeper in the product? Can we give them like a demo of our latest feature? Again, like all async so that they can enable themselves. And if someone is far more top of funnel, they have come to an event to educate themselves. So they probably want to do more work there. So we spend a ton of time internally on our own research. So we're very much like research driven in our follow up to say, hey, like this is a trend we've noticed on your website. This correlates with this piece of research we have done. We think this is how you should interpret it and like action on it yourself. So it's very value driven. We're never going to go to Dave and say like, hey, Dave, you were on this. Now you're educated. Come talk to us.
And how do you do that?
That's where the magic lives.
Okay.
That is like workflows that we have. We must have done 40 webinars at least last year. And in each one, our aim is to like continue to get the open rate up, the click-through rate up, and the conversion rate. And then measuring some of that stuff is very difficult because for each person, they're kind of being left with a different call to action, but it's really like tight refinements on many different parts of the system that compound over time.
And are you able to like look out in the future and then that webinars influence those deals? 90 days from now, you see a close one deal, everyone's excited, and you're like, oh, yep, they went to 2 webinars. And then you like kind of reverse look at it versus like, all right, we did this webinar. Where are the deals? Where are the deals?
Yeah, we do not look at like trailing 14 days. It is like a 30-day or like 90-day lag. 30-day on maybe like demo booked, 90 days more so on like closed one or like qualified business. So there is like a nice pop when we do a webinar. People who are just like, oh, like I see these guys are experts. They're talking about something I need to like go deeper on. I want to actually talk to a human. We will see like a pop in demos booked, but very much it has like a long tail effect. And like that's what we're trying to go for. Like we'd much rather win the long-term game than like optimize the crap out of the short-term game, because you're just going to burn relationships. So I have definitely evolved over time from the like, let's gate everything. Let's like make sure that we squeeze every email out of everyone as often as we can, to just be, how do we create the best content, give it away for free, and then when someone has their problem or needs a solution in the future, we're the first name top of mind. And I think you asked me the question on like, what webinar software are we going to go with? I don't know. Like, no one's like always in my face saying like, we're the best for this reason, or more so like offering me value of how I can better engage with my community or like audience. No one's doing that to me from like the webinar side. So I actually don't have a top of mind name right now.
All right. Don't worry. Depending on when this podcast comes out, you'll get
I'm sure I'll get a lot of coal outbound. Yeah.
No, that's good. And then how have you earned the right to do this, right? I think someone's listening, they get it. My friend Pranav from Paramark would say, like, don't treat people like morons, right? If you do something good and then over time, they're going to come back and tell you that they heard about you or whatever. We've been doing this podcast for 3 years. I don't try to drive Exit 5 members from this, but like literally every single week, people say, oh, I heard about you on the podcast. It's just because we've been doing it. Do you have a tight relationship with the management team? Like, do you have to get permission? Do they believe in your marketing strategy? Because if anybody else was like, hey, here's the deal, we're going to do all these webinars, we're not going to gate any of them. The follow-up's kind of going to all be different, but like this is going to lead to deals somehow. Just trust me, right? Like on the outside, it's like, no, that doesn't work. Maybe it works for you, but how did you make that work?
It's a good question. It's kind of going back. It is the question age old of like attribution. Like no one has solved it. No one ever will solve it. So like it is a matter of storytelling. And I think it comes back to, I don't want to say like I'm a great storyteller, but I can find the data that can help back up my point of view that I've high conviction in. So early on, it was like, damn, like, Owen, you're investing a crap ton of time in this like webinar thing. It hasn't really taken off yet. Like maybe we should put our focus elsewhere. But basically, I talked to like some of my advisors, my mentors, and they were like, no, you like need to get into a rhythm here before you completely rule it out. So it was great advice I got at that point, because we had done like 3 or 5 and hadn't seen results, but it was starting to show up in sales conversations, which was my qualitative like data point. And then we did like number 6 and 7, and we started to like refine our call to action, started to refine like what we did in follow up, just tried to like sell less on the call. And then just like the hamster wheel started to move. And when it starts to move, you're more easily finding proof points. You're better equipped to like tell a story internally. And then you get to this point of perpetual motion, where it's just like, hey, this is the thing that we do. And like our co-founders or the rest of our team, even as new people join, they're like, oh, like digital PR, like I know this amazing person. So where originally it was really tough to get it off the ground, now we're in a privileged position of we have to turn down guests right now, which is tough. So we're always looking to scale, but I think it comes back to, if you're trying to repeat this motion elsewhere, it comes back to having high conviction, finding some data points to back up your point of view, where along the journey you are, and then like storytelling it like internally and keeping your market informed as well.
It's like, I don't know if you play golf, but there's a common analogy to a lot of things, which is like, you have to find the right balance of like not trying too hard, but you need to try a little bit. And it's almost like the same is true with like with marketing. It's like, if
Yeah.
we try to do these webinars and we're like, all right, we're doing this webinar and we need 5, MQLs from it, then it's like too much pressure. But if you're too laissez-faire with it, like you don't get the right thing. And so
Yeah.
I like what you said. We often use internally, we say like momentum creates clarity. And so it's like you did a couple. I love the feedback loop from sales. That's obviously the ultimate one. If a bunch of people start saying like, yeah, we've been going to the webinars, like, oh shoot, okay, let's go do more of those. Somehow we chewed up a lot of this time, but I'm going to keep you for a couple more minutes. Webinars, good enough. You left enough there to be desired. I do have 2 quick follow-ups. One, you mentioned like, are there some type of signals, like, someone that goes to the webinar, are you ingesting like data from, your websites, CRM, other sources, and then kind of scoring them in some way? I feel like you mentioned something like that.
Yeah.
And what are you doing that with?
We have a bunch of signal tracking tools. So like or B2B for like person level enrichment. We use like Hockey Stack to get a better feel of when we have performance ads. Is someone at a company getting a ton of ads or no ads? And again, it is so interesting in that perspective. We do a customer deep dive every week. How many people come in and say that they found us through personal research? And if you're listening, I'm doing like air quotes. The people who come in with personal research have received a crap ton of ads. So we use like Hockey Stack or B2B, Trigify, and like what HubSpot tracks out of the box to figure out what has their journey been over time, how long do they know about us, and then kind of like their most recent activity as well.
Okay, cool. Because that seems like such a useful thing. It's not just about that webinar in a vacuum. It's like they also did this and they did that. And then how do you get butts in seats, right? Somebody's like, yeah, well, whatever. You Airops, like you raise money, you made an announcement, you got a lot of hot buzz, you got a list. Like, how are you getting butts in seats to these things? Any secrets?
There's a few secrets I'll keep in my back pocket because I want to make sure.
Okay, no, I respect that, as you should.
I do think 80-20 rule applies. I'll keep the 20%. The 80% is just, and again, this is, you need to develop towards it of like the storytelling, but give away the value. Like I have learned that so much in the last 18 months. Like don't gate. And that will feel so hard to let go of in certain organizations because you're targeted against like an MQL goal or like a sales qualified goal, but give away the value. And how I look at it and how we look at it is we win when our like audience wins. And our audience, even in the last 30 days, I've never seen as much public love on LinkedIn about our webinars where they're like screen recording in the background because they don't want to wait 6 hours for us to send out the email. And they're sharing out snippets on LinkedIn. They're doing their own UGC of it on amazingly TikTok, but also YouTube. So the whole thing is like basically give as much value as possible, like find their pain points and democratize access to thought leaders or the like best insights, and then your users will do the distribution for you.
Pick a hot topic also helps.
True.
Okay, two quick hitters. Give me 2 things, 2 other channels or 2 things that are working besides webinars. Well, you're doing content, you got a content engineer, that whole thing is working, you're using your own product to do that. Webinar program, 1 or 2 other channels that are like promising and a part of the mix moving forward for Airops.
Yeah. Maybe just like one bit of sage advice for the audience as well. And I'm a young guy, so take my use of sage with a pinch of salt. I think the channels marketing team should focus on should be ones that establish trust and then agent visibility. They're very different, but I think they all come back to like authenticity. So from our side, like webinars, our own content, they actually fall a lot into both buckets, but also agent visibility. Trust is really where we're trying to hone in on. So we do a ton of enablement, and we probably spend more time enabling people who are not customers than actually customers. But the whole goal is to educate people on how to use these tools. Like we've mentioned Cloud Code a ton of times. We're running an upcoming webinar on that. It's not something that like we've productized, but we're like, if we can move the market further, like again, they'll know about us around these hot topics. So enablement is huge. It's establishing a real strong base of UGC and referral and like word of mouth for us. And then events. Webinars, we keep coming back to, which is funny, but we ran them for like 10 months before we actually did any in-person first party event. And it was amazing. We had these people who met up in New York at like a hackathon. And they were like Lucy and Vivian and Paul and like Mary. And they'd all been engaging on our webinar chats before. And then they met in person. And they just created little pods in lots of different cities all over the US and actually abroad too. And they're kind of like almost grounds up creating their own events. And we're trying to meet it tops down with larger ones too. So events, community, they're all kind of together, but bundling up to trust, I think, as a core bucket of channels.
Anything that you're not inventing, did anything get the axe in the 2026 budget? Come on, give me something. I know something.
Yeah.
You fired a PR agency or something like that. I don't know.
No, we've been privileged of, I don't think anything got cut. What I don't feel, I'm hesitating because I feel like nothing has been cut on us because we're very quick to experiment. And experiments to us are like, how do we short circuit our learning time? How do we like de-scope to like the smallest possible MVP, but make sure that it drives a learning or a signal out the far side? So we've had multiple bets that just like haven't paid off on existing channels, but we'll always start to invest or over-invest in the ones that work. So there's nothing that when I go to like a leadership meeting, I'm like, guys, like you've denied me 4 times on this. I can't say that honestly there is anything that falls into that bucket, but we definitely get support, investment, resources to move fast in the ones that are working for us.
Okay. All right. Fair. Whatever. That was the whole pod was an A plus. That was I'll give you a B, but it's okay. Enjoy your weekends with Claude Code because my friend, that time is going to go away quickly. So you better get sharp. You get to get sharp now. Okay, Eoin, Clancy, this was an awesome episode. Smart guy. You came off great. You did a great job. We got some specific stuff in there. If you sell webinar software, go find Eoin on LinkedIn. Actually, no, yeah. send him an email. You'll find him on LinkedIn. You can follow Airops, see what they're putting out, a lot of useful stuff, and winning by being helpful, which is awesome. Great to have you on the pod. Lots of people have said really nice things about you, and I agree. Did a nice job on the pod, and I'll continue to follow you. And we'll check you out on the next episode. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm Dave Gerhardt, and I'm out of here. Eoin, see you.
See ya.
Hey, thanks for listening to this podcast. If you like this episode, you know what? I'm not even going to ask you to subscribe and leave a review because I don't really care about that. I have something better for you. So we've built the #1 private community for B2B marketers at Exit 5, and you can go and check that out. Instead of leaving a rating or review, go check it out right now on our website, exit5.com. Our mission at Exit 5 is to help you grow your career in B2B marketing, and there's no better place to do that than with us at Exit 5. There's nearly 5,000 members now in our community. People are in there posting every day, asking questions about things like marketing planning, ideas, inspiration, asking questions and getting feedback from your peers, building your own network of marketers who are doing the same thing you are so you can have a peer group. Or maybe just venting about your boss when you need to get in there and get something off your chest. It's 100% free to join for 7 days, so you can go and check it out risk-free. And then there's a small annual fee to pay if you want to become a member for the year. Go check it out, learn more, exit5.com, and I will see you over there in the community. Hey, it's me, Dave. Our friends over at Customer.io are sponsors of today's episode. They're a really cool company that helps marketers turn first-party data into engaging customer experiences across email, SMS, and push. And they built their platform for marketers who actually care about the craft because marketing is a craft. It takes creativity, thought, and taste. Right now, everyone thinks they're magically a marketer because they have access to AI. And the result is kind of painful. More robotic emails, more noise, more bleh. AI isn't magic. It's not going to fix bad strategy or write great copy for you magically, but the best teams also aren't ignoring it. They treat AI as infrastructure. When it's built the right way, it actually makes marketing feel more human, not less. And that's what Customer.io is doing. Their AI handles repetitive work like setup, orchestration, and tasks that should be automated so that you can focus on what actually matters, the craft of marketing, the strategy, the creativity. This is how good marketers are using AI right now, not to replace thinking, but to support it. If this landed with you at all, this idea about the craft of marketing, I want you to go and check out Customer.io. It's customer.io/exit5. Go and check them out, customer.io/exit5.